apologize at the top for the potential cuts or if you hear me yawning because it's a nighttime recording, a nighttime, much procrastinated recording. But let's get into it.
Now time for some interactive fun.
So if you're hearing my voice again, my late night voice, I'm still Kirk. This is still Dumb Test Late. I'm still doing this. With this episode, I wanted to do kind of a check-in. I like doing this every now and then. Since this is the season 3 that I'm doing this, how I break up all the ideas. This is season 3. I think I did the last one in season 2, just like an AI check-in or a check-in of, where I'm going with these stories and all that. But my check-in and update, I'll say, is that the original idea for this podcast, like I said, it's Dumb Test Late, I'm still Kirk, was me creating random ideas and getting help from AI. But as I've been doing this podcast for over a year, thank you for listening a million times over, whoever you are, my one listener. But the more and more I've done this podcast, and I feel like the more and more I can rely on. Sorry, my voice is getting raspy. Like I said, it's late night and the LaCroix isn't helping. This episode is brought to you by LaCroix, on sale at Publix. Actually, it wasn't on sale, but it's still good. What was I saying? Yes, I feel like I've gone to AI chatbots less and less. I feel like that was a gimmick to get me started with this podcast, kind of the idea and the pushing motivation of my ideas plus AI, and let's see where it goes. AI is this still new emerging tool with in the creative and the business world. So let me partner with it and see what I can do. But the more and more I do these episodes and come up with these ideas, I think it's more fun on my side researching and watching movies and shows. And this is taking me down so many rabbit holes for creativity with comic books and weird movies and anime and TV shows and all this stuff. That I feel like I don't need AI anymore. And if you've been listening to the show for a while, I really haven't used it that much, which is a good thing, because I feel like every artist, when they're starting out, they learn from what else is already out there. They learn from a master, they learn from an example or something, and they replicate it until they feel comfortable enough to build their own. I would say this about comedians: you repeat comedians' jokes that you heard before until you have your own voice and your own jokes and your own way of telling them and all that stuff. And that's what I feel like a lot of creative people and artists do. You replicate, you learn how to do it, and then you find your own, whatever medium you're in. This will be the same for me, since I'm doing an audio format with, a creative writing side. Also, I'm finding my own voice, or I can say I found my own voice, my nighttime voice. But, yeah, so I want to, since I'm already not using the AI feature of this, I just want to cut it out completely. I've updated the website and taken it out. I need to update more descriptions, where I felt like AI would be a buzzword or a SEO feature that will help me get seen, help me get a larger audience, and it hasn't happened. Or, it's hard to compete in the podcast world. I have to compete with celebrities and all that stuff and influencers. But I'm moving more and more away from AI as a support tool. I'm relying on myself, which is always what you should do, is strive to do as an artist. Use other things for inspiration, but you need to, at some point, rely on yourself. Until you get way too big, and then you have people working for you. You can have a whole crew of people just doing it for you. You're just the inspiration. But I'm nowhere near that yet. I'm still on the basement floor of creating. But yeah, that's my check-in and update. But that's not all for this episode. I didn't want to just leave you with that. So I will still do some images, AI images, because I'm working on changing the way I do the cover art. I usually do, some kind of AI image generator to, I plug in the idea and the tagline or the title of this podcast and see what that comes up with in different designs. But I also want to move away from that too. I want to stop relying on AI totally. So hopefully this will be the last episode I use it for. And I'm trying to do more photography with it, kind of, or like I said, become my own artist in creating minimalist designs for like the podcast titles and ideas and episodes. You'll see that for the cover art, hopefully. Also on my website, dumbtestslate.com, and the Instagram, which I rarely use, dumbtestslate, but there's still some up there. Okay. So that's my check-in. Me not using AI or not relying on AI as a crutch, and kind of moving away from that as one of the founding ideas for this podcast, and just relying on me. So this podcast, if you want a elevator pitch or a title for it or a quick explanation for it, it's a story creating podcast that leads to a storytelling podcast. I create the stories, and that's kind of how the episodes go. It's the process of me creating these episodes and telling a story, doing all the research and all that. And that's what I feel is very fun. That's what keeps me doing this podcast, because it's not like I make money from this. Making this podcast actually costs me money. But no, that's not the important part. It's the creativity. It's becoming an artist and a creative type. Okay. So that's my check-in. Let me know. Find me somewhere on the internet. Don't find me in the real world. Let me know what you think about that. Okay. So for this episode, along with just the check-in, I wanted to do a triple feature type episode where I would talk about 3 smaller ideas that I had that I really don't think will go anywhere, or I feel that they were small ideas. So I could do like how they did drive-in movie theaters back in the day, where you go and see a triple feature or a double feature or something like that. So I have like 3 small ideas that I maybe only have like the first inspiration for. So I wanted to get those out there. I wanted to put it on audio. So like put it out into the creative spectrum and let them grow. Maybe I'll come back to them. But okay, so here are my 3 ideas. Then I wrote this one Saturday night at midnight, and I wrote it on a note and said I should be asleep. But the first idea is called The Voice of the Hour, or in Spanish, La Voz del Momento, because the idea is going to be a character that is this really huge radio personality on this small Caribbean, Spanish or Afro-Caribbean island where nobody really knows what they look like. It's kind of, it would be in the past where, radio is huge, but they have this really huge radio voice, kind of like my nighttime voice. But in reality, they kind of hate their voice, and they're kind of like exiled on this island. They're an expat or something. They're hiding from whatever place they were from, so they're hiding on this island, so they're super introverted, and in their real life they do not like to talk because they don't like the celebrity lifestyle. They don't like being noticed by people, so when they're out in the town where they're living their life, they don't talk. And then they find someone, a romantic interest that is a deaf person that they feel like they can really open up to and be around, because this person doesn't know that there's huge celebrity radio voice on this small island. And so that's like I said, this is one of the small ideas that I haven't really, put too much effort behind in researching and all that stuff and creating the story. It's my first idea of what this story will be. The Voice of the Hour, La Voz del Momento. Okay, the second one is called Punching Bag, or Oblick. So this would be kind of a sci-fi, not big sci-fi, but a small, like a sci-fi or a drama story with sci-fi elements, which is one of my favorite movie genres. I don't know if there's another word for it, but it's like set in the future, like that movie Her or something. When it's set in the distant future, or set on another planet, or set in an alternate universe where it's a drama story, it's a comedy story. It's like sci-fi isn't the big pull or the big backdrop of the story. It's not like a sci-fi action movie. It's just like there's a sci-fi element to the story, but the main story is the drama, it's the comedy or something like that. So it would be this person. Their name is Oblei, Ooblei, named after Oblek, which is a non-Newtonian fluid. Look that up. It's made with cornstarch and water. Sorry for that cut. I wasn't yawning. I had to take a LaCroix break because my voice was going on that one, and I was starting to sound like death itself. Okay, but I'm back. My punching bag story. I was saying my character's name was Oblei, named after Oblek, which is a non-Newtonian fluid. You'll see it like first time I saw it on Mythbusters, but you'll see it on YouTube or TikTok or something, where it's made of cornstarch and water, and it basically you could run across it and be okay. It looks like water, but it's like moving as a fluid, but it's really thick. But if you you can run across it and be okay. But if you like stand there, you'll sink into it. That's what a non-Newtonian fluid is. So my character will basically be made up of this, and they basically act as kind of I don't know, I said I wasn't going to use AI, but like maybe like a cyborg or AI where they're a service, let's say Android or something like that, or partly human or something, where they act as a punching bag for people. Like people can, like an emotional punching bag, or people can hire them if they want to, like, you know, that thing where you're in the shower, that's where you win all your arguments in the shower when you're alone. So this would be kind of that. They won't be in the shower with you, but like if you had an opportunity to yell at someone, but you don't really want to actually yell at the person, you can hire this Obli, which is a punching bag where they can take all your insults. They could take your punches, literal physical punches, and you could like get it out of your system. You could use them as a human analog punching bag, and they'll basically take all your punches, and you can just like get all your anger and aggression out without actually hurting someone. So sorry if you hear a dog in the background. There's a dog next door. So that's my punching bag story. Of course, it would be like that sci-fi futuristic backdrop, but it'd be a drama tale where we follow this person who is an emotional punching bag and how they just take everyone's abuse and all that stuff, but they always have a happy demeanor about it because that's kind of what they were built for. And it shows them they don't really have emotions and all that stuff, but you find out they do, and then they ended up like falling for someone because nobody really like cares for them or looks out for them. They're just a punching bag. People just walk by and kick them because that's their whole purpose, people to get their anger and frustration out on. But you find out they are like kind of a real person and all that stuff. And it's like the I hate to use this term, but the pixie fairy like love interest that pops up and actually shows them like love and admiration and kindness, which they never had. So that's that drama and love story. I would call it either punching bag or Oblek. Oblek is the name for the non-Newtonian fluid, but their name is Obli. Or maybe it'll just be Obli, the name for that one. I said I wanted to watch the movie Novocaine that recently came out. This is 2025. But I think it's like an action movie. It's where a person can't feel pain, but they ended up becoming like, they do like superhero. It becomes an action movie where they have to save their girlfriend and all that stuff. I wouldn't do that. That wouldn't be like, this would just be a drama, a comedy or a drama. Okay. So that's the second idea. The third one, it's funny because this one, it was like a father-son story where like the son grows up without a good father figure and the father figure comes back into their life and all that stuff. And I was thinking about that if I was doing this, the father figure would be George Lopez. And it's weird because I randomly thought of this whole thing while just laying in bed, couldn't sleep, and I just thought of this whole idea. And then I found out later on something similar kind of happened to George Lopez, or something he did in real life. Okay, I'll get into it. So the father-son idea, like my character would be working in like a big box retail store. They're like a manager or something, and they have a new hire. And you have that scene where he's like sitting in his office, and one of the assistants brings in the new hire, and he realizes that it's his father he hasn't been in touch with for years, and they have a really strained and bad relationship. He's like, oh hell no. They both say oh hell no at the same time. But that's like my character's younger version, and then the father figure is George Lopez. And so he's like down on his luck. Maybe he's like been traveling and all this stuff, or I don't want to say in jail. That's like a trope. But whatever, he's been absent for this son's whole life. The son kind of had to raise himself with a single mom and all that stuff. But he's moved up in the world. He's like this manager for this big box store. And then the father figure shows up and needs a job, and he gives him the job. So they have this really strange relationship as like a father figure who never's there. And now his son is his boss. So you have that all comedy drama element. And then you find out later on that the father has kidney issues from lifelong of, doing alcohol and all this stuff. I'll come back to that in a second. He has kidney issues, and the son feels like the only reason the father is there because he's a match to be a kidney donor to his father, and he flips out on him. It's always that thing in the story where people who don't get along in the beginning of the story, then they get along, and then you have that dramatic break. This will be the dramatic break when the son finds out that, or feels that, the father is he's not there to reconnect and all this stuff, and it was false, that he's only there to get get one of his kidneys so it could save the father's life. And then the son is kind of torn up about it because the son has his own family now, young family, and his wife just gave birth to a young child. The son feels that he's fearful that if he gives this kidney to his father, the son might get sick and pass away, and he's not going to be there for his child. That's like his biggest fears, his biggest things, that he wants to be there for his child like his father wasn't there for him. That's what he was like. I want to have a family, and I want to always be there. I want to have a normal life and be there for my family. And he has this big fear that, if he gives him this kidney, maybe he gets sick too and he passes away. He won't be a father figure, and another child will grow up without a father figure and struggle that way. But then, they come together at the end, but the son doesn't give the George Lopez father figure the kidney. Actually, the son's wife does, because she's kind of she's the in-between them, trying to bring them back together so they can have a whole happy family. That kind of solves the problem. She's still healthy. It's like a reveal. You think that the father figure dies in the end, but no, he's in the hospital with his daughter-in-law who gave him the kidney, and the son is kind of relieved and happy. He's there for his wife, his father, his new baby. That's how the story to jump to the end. I'm jumping to the end because I didn't realize when I was thinking about this, and I was looking it up later on. George Lopez, I think it was early 2000s or 2010s. He had an issue with his kidney. One of his kidneys failed, and his wife at the time gave her his kidney to save him, and he ended up cheating on her, and they ended up getting divorced. And I was like, oh, that's wild. Maybe that like subconsciously real life story seeped into my head, and randomly when I was trying to sleep, I came up with that story idea, which is funny and weird, but I kind of like that story idea. I want to fully fill that on. Maybe it won't be George Lopez. It'll be some other always like older comedians coming back and doing things like Eddie Murphy or Eddie Griffin or something like that. Used to be like Bernie Mac, rest in peace. These like older comedians doing these father figure roles. But I like that family comedy, dramatic elements. Yeah, that's one of my three mini ideas. Maybe I'll come back to them in the future. But I wanted to do this AI update of what this podcast is going to be, that I'm still doing this podcast. I actually like doing this podcast. I am a procrastinator, and I do fall on like low energy at times where I can't bring myself to do it because this is late at night. I've procrastinated all day. I could have done this all weekend. It's Monday night in 2025. But I wanted to get it out there. But yeah, I'll end it there with an update in these three mini ideas that I may continue. I have a bigger story idea since I teased it on the last episode. If you listen to this chronology, or however that word is said, in series, my next big story, the one I've done most research on and I'm still building, is going to be a baseball story. Since it's springtime, baseball has just recently started. I've been wanting to do this since last year. I kind of came with this idea around the after Thanksgiving, I'll say. But I said I wanted to wait till springtime when baseball started to like basically get into good inspiration mode with it. But maybe that'll be the next episode, or I'll start that series. I'll do, like I said, I want to do at least 2 episodes per idea. So I'll have a few episodes on that baseball idea because I want it to be a big, long idea where I fill it out fully with setting, with story ideas, with characters and all that stuff. I want to really fill this one out because I do like this one. But maybe I'll come back to the mini ones that I just did for this episode too. But I'm rambling. You can realize that. That means we're getting to the end of that episode. But that does mean I'm still Kirk. This is still Dumb Tessellate. Thank you for still listening. I'll catch you on the next one. For now, be kind, be nice, be happy, be open-minded. Don't be hateful. Love everyone. Love your neighbors. Love thy neighbor. All of them. All of them. Okay, so yeah, that's the end of it. Bye-bye.